From the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on Ag Day, we're on the road from the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois, where there's been a lot of news. The president responding to farmers' concerns about those blending waivers approved by the EPA. What we're hearing when it comes to the trade war with China.
I know that he wants a deal done.
And what a trade deal with Japan could mean for the industry.
Pork, beef, and poultry is going to be excited about this.
Ag Day, on location at the Farm Progress Show, is brought to you by FMC, advancing chemistry to advance agriculture.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths, coming to you from the Farm Progress Show in Decatur, Illinois. Our thanks to the folks over at FMC for helping sponsor our coverage today. Now on Wednesday, Ag Secretary Sonny Perdue was here on the grounds. The Secretary holding a listening session and a press conference while in attendance. One of the first questions he was asked was about details regarding the newly announced trade agreement with Japan.
There may be a few sectors or industries that don't feel like they got back to the finish line on that, but for the most part, I think it's going to be equal and not better. And I think certainly our livestock group will feel good, and wheat and others, but we think it'll be a well-received agreement. I think again, these are the type of announcements on the details, USTR. When you have an agreement in principle, I think they want to finish more of the details specifically. In fact, we're still getting additional things there, even as late as yesterday, that enhance the agreement. So I'd rather get a really good one than a quick one. So that's what's happening. It'll be up to the USTR when they feel its deal is finished, and the president can announce the details of that.
The Secretary seeming to suggest it would be similar to language in TPP, although he did say some industries or groups won't get everything they want. Now, American Farm Bureau President Zippy Duval also discussing that agreement with us.
I don't have any of the details, but the news that they've agreed on some principles, the news that's coming out that pork, beef, and poultry is going to be excited about this, and even some grains. I mean, that's a very positive thing, and it replaces a big piece of what we missed out in TPP. So it's a huge, huge announcement.
Meanwhile, trade talks with China may be moving forward. A China Ministry of Commerce spokesman says that both sides have maintained effective communication since that last round of face-to-face talks in Shanghai back in July. It's reported the two countries are still discussing whether a Chinese trade delegation will travel to Washington in September to conduct the next round of face-to-face negotiations. Meanwhile, China has lodged a formal diplomatic complaint about the latest tariffs. President Trump is set to impose this weekend, but China indicating it wouldn't immediately retaliate against those tariffs, emphasizing the need to discuss ways to de-escalate the trade war between the world's two largest economies. Ag Secretary Perdue and others also talking about China during a roundtable discussion here at the Farm Progress Show on Wednesday.
China is not necessarily an open communicator. Obviously, I think even this last G7, I believe there were conversations between President Xi and President Trump that even Xi's affiliates and his team didn't know about. So those kind of things happen. I mean, the president is very much a person-to-person communicator, very much a personal relationship kind of trader and negotiator. And I know that he wants a deal done. He's not going to capitulate to the things that China's been doing, from stealing intellectual property and all that over the years, and he's going to hold out very strong there.
We support the president on what he's trying to do with China, but we worry on the long-term ramifications and the collateral damage that's done to our markets long-term, and I know you're well aware of that. And the sooner rather than later that we can resolve these issues and bring some certainty, I think is what we really want.
U.S. Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin, in an interview with Bloomberg, said U.S. trade officials were still planning for a Chinese delegation to come to Washington without revealing any details. And despite word that the China delegation wouldn't be buying any more U.S. ag products, they continue to do so in small amounts. New weekly export sales data from USDA show China purchased more than 76,000 metric tons of soybeans. That was out of a total of 95,000 metric tons sold last week. Also, the country purchasing whole cattle hides totaling 157,000 pieces, along with a small amount of pork. The trade war also continuing to take a toll on China's pork markets. The Wall Street Journal reporting pork prices in the country have surged to new highs in the past 2 weeks. The double-digit growth is the first significant sign of inflation in the market since the arrival of African swine fever last year began hitting the country's pork supplies. Now, reports are that the country's pork imports rose more than 60% in the second quarter, but those imports are coming at a cost after the country levied higher tariffs on U.S. pork and stopped pork imports from Canada back in June. The Journal also reporting that the Chinese are turning to chicken to make up the difference. This has also been on the mind of many farmers here at the show in Illinois, the EPA and its approval of those 31 biofuel blending waivers and what that might mean for the ethanol industry. The president talking about it Thursday on Twitter saying, quote, "The farmers are going to be so happy when they see what we're doing for ethanol, not even including the E15 year-round, which is already done. It will be a giant package. Get ready. At the same time, I was able to save the small refineries from certain closing. Great for all," end quote. As we reported earlier this week, the president plans to unveil a package of biofuel-related programs at a White House ceremony next week. Ethanol advocates argue the oil refinery waivers have reduced ethanol production by 2.6 billion gallons since the president took office. Some ethanol plants have closed, others have cut back production, they say, because of these waivers. An ongoing concern for beef producers, that fire at the processing plant in Holcomb, Kansas, and how it's impacted the entire industry. Now, Secretary Perdue directed the USDA's Packers and Stockyards Division to launch an investigation into recent beef pricing margins. Perdue saying that if any unfair practices are detected, they will take quick enforcement action. Perdue's announcement was supported by cattlemen's groups, including the National Cattlemen's Beef Association. The Tyson plant in Holcomb accounted for 5% of all U.S. fed cattle packing capacity. Tyson officials have said a spark from welding during maintenance likely caused the fire that damaged the plant. The company saying they were working to get the plant up and running as quickly as possible. Wheat harvest is underway in parts of the country, and you know that big job can always use an extra set of hands, as meteorologist Mike Hoffman shows us in today's Crop Comments. Mike?
Thanks, Clinton. We got this photo in from Michelle Jones in Broadview, Montana. Michelle saying on Twitter she was harvesting the last couple of acres of wheat. And look who joined her in the cab, her little boy. Lots of work for Mom bringing in that harvest, but you can see by the smiles, a lot of important family bonding time made it all worthwhile. Now, take a look at the wind speed forecast. You can see it is going to be windy and a complex of storms in the central plains, and that may dive into Texas as we head through the day. Not a lot of wind elsewhere. Heading into the first part of this holiday weekend on Saturday, we're just going to see a few spots of wind in the north central plains, and that'll be generally with any thunderstorms that develop, but you can see a basic lack of wind across most of the country as we head through the first part of this holiday weekend. I'll have more on your forecast coming up. Now here are some hometown temps.
Introducing Farm Journal TV, on demand 24/7. AgDay, Machinery Pete TV. U.S. Farm Report on your phone and tablet. Download the Farm Journal TV mobile app today.
All right, thanks, Mike. When we come back, we'll talk with Matt Bennett about what he's learned as a farmer and analyst in 2019. And later, between working the land and staying informed, it's been a busy couple of weeks in farm country. And while it can all be a little overwhelming, it isn't all bad. Some farm sense during this busy season coming up.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Those plant-based chicken nuggets and boneless wings just about flew off the shelves from KFC yesterday, as we first told you about. Kentucky Fried Chicken planning to test market for a day. Beyond Meat supplied fried chicken at a location in Atlanta. The New York Times reporting the boneless wings and nuggets sold out in less than 5 hours. That one store reports that it sold the same amount of protein-based food on Tuesday as it normally does in a week with its popcorn chicken. Matt Bennett with agmarket.net here at the Farm Progress Show. Matt, let's talk about 2019. I mean, you farm here in Illinois. What have you learned this year that you think maybe will help you as you go on through your career?
Well, there's a lot of things to learn here out of 2019. For one thing, it doesn't really matter what kind of start you get to the crop. what kind of weather you have during the summer time frame. What really matters when it comes right down to it is what are the USDA numbers on these crop reports? Yeah. And so, you know, I don't typically agree 100% with the USDA, but I don't want their job. I mean, it's a huge job they've got to do, but 169.5 on yield for me was a bit rich. Soybeans 48.5. 3.1 during the last year when we had ideal, pristine weather. Neither one of those made a lot of sense to me, but that's what we traded. That's what the computer models picked up. We pretty much killed this market. And so I think one thing that I learned that we've always tried to impress upon people is when you're in historically profitable areas, which we were, multi-year highs that we saw, latching onto some of that's a pretty smart thing to do. Now, if you don't know what your production is, I totally understand not being able to do something as far as the cash goes. Buy some put options, and I think guys found this year was a wonderful year just to simply buy some puts, get a floor under yourself, and get yourself some protection.
Yeah, agronomically, what are you looking at as far as being able to finish this thing out?
You know, the thing is the cool forecasts that we continue to see are very concerning to me. I don't know whether we're going to get a frost or not. I'm not sure that I care, but I come from the grain business type mentality, and I can tell you I'm glad I'm not in the grain business. Guys that are right now are worried about, are they going to dry every bushel that comes in? Whenever you dry every bushel that comes in, it doesn't keep worth a darn. And so what's basis going to do on old corn moving into harvest? It's probably going to stay fairly decent because I think people are going to want to latch on to as much of that really good corn as what they can.
Yeah, well, it is something to watch. It's been a dynamic year. I know there's still so many unknowns as we still have a few months to go before we really kick harvest off in earnest, although Southern Illinois is getting started. I heard that today. We'll be back with more Ag Day and we'll check your weather coming up in just a minute.
To contact Matt Bennett at Ag Market, call 844-4AG-MARKET. or visit their website at www.agmarket.net. Join Andrew McCrae for Farming the Countryside, a farmer-focused podcast that is all about production agriculture. Farming the Countryside is available wherever you listen to your favorite podcast and is brought to you by Nutrien Ag Solutions, the world's largest provider of crop inputs and services.
And welcome back to Ag Day on this last big holiday weekend of summer. Now we're seeing a lot more drought than we were earlier in the summer season. It is continuing to expand parts of Texas, especially southwest Texas, as well as southwestern Oklahoma. There's still the spots in the southeast, and we've seen an increase in moderate drought across parts of Illinois and Indiana. But it really is spotty, just kind of depends on who hasn't gotten the rain lately. You can see we just go back 4 weeks, a lot less orange on the maps, but as we go through the past 4 weeks, you can see how things just keep getting worse in the Texas and Oklahoma regions, at least those regions that are very dry. There are some areas that aren't. But you can see the southeast has stayed pretty much the same, and it's just gotten a little bit worse across Illinois and Indiana. So here's the map as we start the day today. You can see a cool front with scattered showers and thunderstorms along it. Our model continues to show a complex of storms somewhere in Missouri, eastern portions of Kansas, and that will probably dive southward into the warm, humid air as we head through the day and fall apart as we do that as well. Stationary front across Florida will continue to produce some scattered showers and thunderstorms. Of course, Dorian is offshore. We're going to have to watch that over the next few days as we head toward Monday, especially to see if that affects Florida. Just hit and miss activity in parts of the west, mainly during the afternoon hours. Heading into the first part of the day tomorrow along this stationary front, there'll be some areas of showers and storms. Might even be a complex. Our model is showing that over parts of South Dakota or Nebraska, and that will kind of dive southeastward during the day and fall apart as well. So just scattered stuff along this stationary front as we head through Saturday afternoon, and Dorian continues to get closer and closer to Florida by that time. Here's the precipitation estimate over the past 24 hours. You can see the middle of the country is where a lot of the moisture is going to be. It'll depend on where those complexes of storms happen to occur over the next 36 hours. Heat's going to continue in the south, but these are pretty comfortable numbers, 60s and 70s across the northern tier of states. That'll continue tonight with some low 50s showing up in the northern Great Lakes, and you can see as we head into the day tomorrow, pretty much the same. With that stationary front where it is, it's going to be a big difference in temperatures north to south there. And part of it's because of the jet stream. Actually, a big chunk of it is because of the jet stream. A little bit of a trough in the Great Lakes in the northeast just continues there, keeping things slightly cooler than normal in those areas. But the heat's going to continue down south, and especially in the southwest. as we see that ridge building up by the end of next week. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. We head to El Paso, Texas today. Hot with a mixture of sunshine and clouds, high of 98. Peoria, Illinois, partly sunny, not as warm, high around 75. And finally, Columbia, South Carolina, partly sunny, rather warm, high of 90.
Coming up, would you be able to tell the difference between industrial hemp and cannabis? How researchers at Kansas State are working with law enforcement to help farmers, next.
The IBM Watson Decision Platform for Agriculture, helping to feed a hungry world with the power of AI. Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Many farmers are trying to grow industrial hemp for the first time, but there is some concern about the confusion it can cause for law enforcement, which is why Kansas State researchers recently held a field day for police so they could learn more about hemp.
We're in our first year of industrial hemp research, and we have been reaching out to farmers, we've been reaching out to growers, but we realized one of the groups of people who have to deal with hemp that we haven't reached out to yet is law enforcement. So we had a field day for law enforcement today, and the Kansas Department of Agriculture was here as well to talk about the rules and the regulations. We toured the research plots to kind of show them what an industrial hemp farm would look like, what a grain plot looks like, and what a CBD plot looks like. We had lots of great questions, lots of back and forth, and it was all in all, it was a really successful day.
Law enforcement's involvement with industrial hemp will exceedingly grow as this crop becomes commercialized in Kansas. These outreach events are kind of bridging the gap between those that are involved with the program and law enforcement that may potentially get involved with questions that they have about what's required for licensees to have on themselves when they're transporting industrial hemp. What should I be looking for to ensure that someone's conducting activities that they're legally allowed to conduct. Their involvement with potentially criminal investigations and making the distinction between industrial hemp and cannabis is going to be extremely crucial. So this educational outreach event is a building block for those in law enforcement to understand how it grows and making it into an industrial hemp product.
And if you want to know more about growing hemp, you'll want to check out our second Industrial Hemp College Farm Journals, hosting one in less than 3 weeks in Altoona, Iowa. That's near Des Moines. To register for the September 17th event, go to agweb.com/events. Between the Pro Farmer Midwest Crop Tour and Farm Progress Show, it's been a busy couple of weeks. But I've gained some new insights while out on the road, and the good news is, it's not all bad. My thoughts next on Farm Sense.
Your next piece of equipment is on MachineryPete.com. Search equipment from dealerships across the country to find what you're looking for. Only on MachineryPete.com.
As we wrap up what's been a busy couple of weeks, I always like to reflect on what we've learned along the way. Here at Farm Progress Show, it's clear. Innovation in agriculture is alive and well. Companies are investing, creating, building, and bringing new tools to the market. They're pushing to help farmers grow yields and understand every step in the annual process. But as we saw on Crop Tour, regardless of innovations, there are still times when Mother Nature bears down, stifles the year's plans, shuts out our hopes for profits, and changes business plans and adds stress to our lives. And we've seen the stress. It bubbles over into our interactions with others, how we treat our family, our friends, and strangers. I've learned patience the last 2 weeks, but I've also learned patience wears thin. Farmers understand some of the efforts of Washington, but that doesn't mean there isn't anxiety about how it approaches the farm gate and what it means for demand long term. And this is a long-term game. Generations of work, of hustle or sacrifice poured into the fields, the pastures, and the businesses of agriculture. Nobody is working just for one season. The plan is to be here for the long haul. So what did I learn these last couple of weeks? That American agriculture is passionate enough to do it, to keep on, regardless of the rain, the drought, the geopolitical landscape. The landscape they focus on sits at the horizon, the one they wake up for every morning, regardless, ready to go to work. It's been a great couple of weeks. Thank you for joining us, and thanks to FMC for allowing us to be here at the show today. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great day out in farm country. We'll see you next week.
AgDay, on location at the Farm Progress Show, is brought to you by FMC, advancing chemistry to advance agriculture. Protect your season with FMC herbicides, insecticides, and fungicides.